GVM upgrades. Do you really need one? Talk to the experts, understand your vehicle, understand the ratings. So you got to really consider, especially when you're towing, that the vehicle is fit for purpose. There's brand new vehicles out there. They're blowing engines and blowing transmissions, but they sit within GVM. Welcome back to Loading Up. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit of a black art, which is GVM upgrades. Do you really need one? Now, I think there's a lot of misconception and miscalculation in the industry when it comes to GVM upgrades. I'm going to give you my opinion on whether you should consider getting a GVM upgrade or not. Let's get into it. Here's the best bit of advice that I can give everybody. Talk to an expert. Go to a fulcrum store. Make sure you're talking to those guys about what you want out of your vehicle, what you're going to be towing, and give them full disclosure on everything that you plan on doing in the future. It's like any build, right? Or pretty much anything in life. You've got to map the thing out from the start. You've got to ensure that you're sitting within the legal requirements. GCM, GVM, axle loading, tow ball weights, it all gets super confusing. And I remember in the early days of Patriot, going all the way through to where we are now, I've learnt a lot when it comes to GVMs and when it comes to GCM upgrade. Now there are of course other options when it comes to GVMs and GCMs. There's things like vehicles getting registered in MB2 categories, there's second stage manufacturer upgrades, but I'm not going into any of that in this video. In this video, I'm just going to be talking about out-of-the-box vehicles and your standard GVM upgrades. GVM, gross vehicle mass. Now, how they work that out from the factory, and you've got to remember, and I say even to the engineering department here, these companies, all of Ram, Toyota, Nissan, they spend millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars of R&D. Those guys are the mecca, and that should be your first point of call when you're considering, say, purchasing a new vehicle for going off-road. What are you going to be doing? What are you going to be towing? What accessories are you going to be fitted? GVM means gross vehicle mass, and how they work out the gross vehicle mass is they take the standard vehicle, they fill it with the number of occupants that vehicle can take. Say it's 5 seats, they'll fill it with 5 people, but they use a calculation at 68 kilograms per person. Now, me, for example, I'm well over that. The big dog, Ashton, he is well over that. Christian's well over that. So you got to consider, first of all, the passengers that you're loading in. Then they'll take whatever fuel capacity it will have. They'll fill the tank full of fuel. And then they'll work out what the tare weight is of the vehicle. And then they'll allow for the payload that the vehicle can take. So you hear about utes being 1 tons, half tons, quarter tons, especially when you're talking the United States, plus any accessories that you got fitted. And then they'll give that vehicle a number and they'll say, that is the total gross vehicle mass that vehicle can accept. When it comes to GCM, that's the total that the vehicle can accept, plus any accessories that you got fitted, plus whatever it's towing on the hitch. Then you have a hitch rating on that. Some vehicles, me as Jeep for example, has got a 250 kilo ball weight rating. My Ram 2500 has got a 450 kilo ball weight rating. Now where that gets a little bit wild, when we're building off-road vehicles, we start with fitting bigger wheels and tyres, we add weight. We start with long-range fuel tanks, we're adding weight. Then we go and put a bull bar on, then we go and put a roof rack on, then we go and potentially put a canopy on the back of it. All of a sudden, when you factor in those other factors, like the extra capacity of the fuel, all of the accessories, and 4 of your mates that are 100 kilos plus sitting in, a lot of people don't know it before they even start. They're over the GVM of the vehicle. Now, in Australia, we're very, very strict on this ruling, a little bit more relaxed than the United States. But getting back to what I said at the start, the manufacturer has only done the testing and the design on the vehicle to hit that max GVM. So before we even talk about towing, when you go and fit all those accessories and you overload the vehicle, you're pushing the vehicle past its limits. So when you're looking at buying a new truck and going off-roading, you've got to take into consideration what you're going to modify and what you're going to fit to it. Now that's all confusing on its own. When you go to the back of the vehicle, you get a hitch weight rating. Like I said on my Ram, I'm the 2500, 450 kilos. That's a static load rating. That's with the vehicle sitting still or going down a sealed highway at 100 kilometers an hour, and the back of the trailer's doing this and putting weight on the hitch. Then you go and cross the Simpson Desert and you start hitting those big whoops and you get those massive moments. It increases the dynamic load onto that hitch. You can start pushing that hitch to 2 or 3 times through those big whips and undulations. It's putting all of that force, driving all that force back into the chassis of the vehicle. And that's where a lot of people start running into those issues. The biggest advantage when it comes to GVMs, GCMs and all of those calculations when it comes to towing is you end up with the ability to balance the vehicle much better and stay under GVM, i.e. remove load that you would typically have in the vehicle and transfer it into what you're towing, transfer it into the trailer. That's always been the mantra of Patriot campers right from the start. That's exactly what the X-Range was designed to do. And when we first developed and first built the X-Range, that's how it changed our weekends, because we could literally tow an X-Range behind any vehicle that we wanted to. We left the trailer loaded, we knew how to balance it, we knew what our hitch weights were, and on the weekends we'd back home on a Friday afternoon, hitch the thing up, nothing would go into the vehicle. We knew we were well under GVM. We know with the 2-ton loading that we're under GCM on anything that we were driving at that time. So there's a big tip for everyone to consider, which is often not spoken about. If you're over GVM and you know that you're going to be over GVM, transfer some of that stuff, your fridges, the kids' clothes, the bikes, transfer it into the towable, make sure that it's loaded correctly and you don't overload the hitch. Now in the early days, the vehicles that we were driving on Patriot Games, we took a shift when we partnered up with Ram Trucks Australia. When we built the first 2500, the Black Super Ram, I wanted the ability to build something that was much more hardcore in that point in time than anything that we built before in the past, and that meant adding more accessories and more weight. When I got introduced to the Ram 2500 platform with its big GVM, big GCM, big tow ball weight, that was a perfect platform to start with. But that doesn't mean that you can't get an upgrade to your vehicle. You just got to stay within that manufacturer's parameters. When it comes to GVM upgrades, the main priority of the GVM upgrade is a third party is looking at the engineering of that particular vehicle, saying that we can increase this capacity by a nominal amount. Normally it's quite marginal. We can increase this capacity by increasing, very simply with most GVMs, by increasing suspension, the performance of the suspension. So normally shocks and springs. Some other GVM upgrades will consider axle loading, say for example, and that gets into a whole nother realm. Even when you're considering the GVM, you still have the manufacturer's specification on what load you can actually put on the front axle of the car, or the front wheels if you've got an IFS car, or the rear axle of the car. The GVM upgrades will take that into account. So some of the companies are offering axle upgrades, bearing upgrades to get the GVMs up as known failure points. The one thing that I don't particularly agree with is the mechanical ability of the vehicle is not often considered when it comes to GVM upgrades. Can the engine handle it? Can the transmission handle it? Can the rear end handle it? So that's when you start getting into the grey area. But with all of that, if you don't have the skills, you don't have the knowledge, or you don't understand it, there is somebody that you can go to that can generally help you out with it. And we work with Fulcrum here in Australia, and most of our customers do at Patriot Campers. We refer them back to the Fulcrum stores. They can get in there, talk to an expert, talk to them about what they're going to be fitting onto the vehicle and what GVM may be suitable for that particular car. Now the second part of all of that is your GCM. That's your gross combined mass. That's the total weight of your vehicle, whether it's modified or unmodified, with whatever is coupled to it, your caravan, trailer, whatever you're towing on the back. Your GVM does not increase your GCM, and that's something that you've got to be really mindful of. The actual load rating that I spoke about earlier, you've got to be very mindful of that, and especially when you look at GCM. You go and put 450 kilos on the hitch of some of the big American trucks, you can get your rear axle load over the manufacturer's specification, and your car's going to be deemed illegal. So consider GCM is not affected with the GVM upgrade. Now, where's all this coming from? Patriot campers now have moved into the 3.5 ton space with what you see behind me with the ST7. In the early days with the X-Range, we've never had to really consider it. An X-Range, depending on your model, depending on your options, is going to be somewhere between 100 and 140 kilos on the tow ball, with the max ATM at 2 ton, meaning a vehicle like me as Jeep can tow a Patriot X-Range, not a problem. She can't tow an ST7, she can't tow an ST5, hence the reason I'm driving the bigger American trucks. So the loads now in the Patriot campers range will vary anywhere between 100 kilos in the next range, depending if how you loaded an ST7. If it was loaded improperly, you could probably get an ST7 up to about a 400 kilo ball weight. So you've got to consider how you're balancing your load as well. We see a lot of towables that are going up and down the highway, and you'll see people that have got 3 dirt bikes stacked up on the drawbar, you know, kids' dirt bikes. What that does to the ball weight increase is the biggest factor in what we're seeing where people are going wrong, because they don't understand it. How you load your caravan completely affects how much tow ball weight that you put onto the vehicle. Let's say, for example, you've got a 20-foot caravan, its factory ball weight is 200 kilos. You factor that into your calculations when it comes to your GVM and what you're loading on the back of the car, but then you go and improperly load it and do things like put dirt bikes on the drawbar hitch, or you know, you go and stack a heap of weight in the front and you slowly increase that hitch weight up and up and up. You can, in an instant, you can be very close to, or you could be over the axle load, the GVM of the car, or your tow ball weight. Then you go and take that thing off-road and you go and start hitting potholes and doing what we all love to do when we're off-road, and that's when you start damaging the vehicles. So you've got to really consider, especially when you're towing, that the vehicle is fit for purpose. If you're looking at towing a 4.5 ton caravan, you're not going to go and buy a dual cab Japanese ute. You're going to look at an American truck, or you're going to look at getting GVM upgrade to sit within the legal requirements. Now, there's a lot of information that are available on this subject, and even for me, who's someone who produces camper trailers and builds off-road trucks, the information can get absolutely overwhelming. You know, as a father of 3 kids, and I see it towing up and down the highways in them remote locations, this at the end of the day, whether you agree with the Australian laws or you don't agree with the Australian laws, it's kind of irrelevant because it's all about safety, yeah? We see some horror stories, we hear some horror stories about people being overloaded, trailers getting into accidents, and other families getting put in jeopardy when it comes to towing. So this is probably more a safety message more than anything else. We're starting to see it across the range of customers here now at Patriot Campers. The question is coming up a lot more once again because of the new models that we're getting into. I can't stress enough, get in and talk to an expert. Go to your local Fulcrum store. There's hundreds of them around the country. They can give you the right advice. Now, full disclosure on this one here. This is my interpretation. I'm not a lawyer, yeah? I'm not an engineer. These are the things that we're seeing here at Patriot Campers and the advice that I'm giving to everybody. Talk to the experts, understand your vehicle, understand the ratings of your vehicle. That's on you when you go to setting that vehicle up. Because at the end of the day, if you don't understand it, you miscalculate and you end up damaging the vehicle or hurting somebody out on the road, the responsibility ultimately sits on you. So there's my interpretation on GVMs and GCMs. Once again, make sure that you get the right advice, make sure you understand what you want to do with your vehicle, and please make sure that you're legal. So that's it for today. I'm going to go finish loading up under GVM, and I'm out of here.